opposing gloves here, and this is another sounds like video. It's a sort of an FME type deal. So this is the sound I was asked to make something similar to. It is from Dyro, pretty sure that's how you say it, Dyro X Loopers Jack It Up, and it's this sound. So that da-na-na-na-na, oh yeah, it's real cool. Now this is one of those sounds, he changes it quite a bit because there's a lot of really cool timbres that come in and out of this song, and it's all, I'm pretty sure, a variation on the same patch. So here's my sound. So, of course, now I'm not totally happy with the mix, but this is one of those sounds that is totally mix dependent. Like there's a huge impact on the way I've mixed the kick with this, and it's not as clean as theirs because I was just sort of mucking around trying to get something similar to this. But anyways, check this out. If I just change a few things. So just that, if you change the index on 2 or 3, it gets pretty wildly different. If I take out the sub, I've got a sub in here. So that's this top end. So let's really quick talk about this patch and what exactly is going on. So I've got two sides to this thing. Well, let me show you a couple more variations real quick because it can be quite vast. So yeah, you have lots of room for timbre control and doing all sorts of madness. And I'm staying outside of the post-processing right now. One thing that is a reoccurring sort of idea in this thing, I'm trying to get it back to where it was. I'm not sure exactly where I put it though. Is this idea of octaves versus ratio harmonics. So in like music theory, how you can have a second, like there are intervals that sound nice, like the 4th and the 5th, and the octave, same in sound design. Some of these intervals don't even exist as regular intervals in scales. Some of them are ones that, like the 2 to 3 is a pretty big one. So 2 to 3 works out kind of nice, but this is in parallel, so it's kind of an interesting deal. But yeah, so that's an interesting idea. And the 7 and 3 and anything that's like a mid ratio that still works is a pretty interesting sound as a ratio. So you see, I'm using a combination, but you can get quite consonant timbres that follow very like straightforward harmonic series that you're used to listening to just by changing these. So the general idea behind this patch is I have this sort of higher end side of the patch. Let me and then I have this lower end side. And that's just basically, so back it up. The higher end is a combination of parallel routing, and it was originally part of the lower end, but I decided to sort of separate the two. And he's got like a gap you could see right here. I don't even need to zoom in. It's like right there, this big gap. So there's some sort of gap between the two timbres, but it's very clear that he's got a sub going on down here too. So that's probably the kick though. So yeah, his kick is a little punchy. It's pretty punchy though, so that might not be the kick. But this little boom, 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 usually a sign that this is the kick. So, but there's probably combined with some sort of a sub, which is what makes it so like big and chunky and bright down there. So, anyways, the top end's a combination of parallel routing, and then it's all bottlenecked at 1, so everything comes through to 1. And there's a serial connection between 3 and 4 here. But it's all operating against 2. So 2 is the thing creating that dun 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 dun. It's turning the timbre on and off, but you're only hearing the timbre effects of it turning on and off. So it's a timbre change that's happening. This is one of those sounds that there is probably a global envelope, volume envelope going on, but I didn't go that far because it felt like there was still some stuff sustaining through. And he's also got this separate drum sample going on in his mix. That's what I put in mine. But yeah, so his kick is also largely responsible for the rhythm that you hear. But okay, so backing up. So that's the top section. We're going to cover that more in detail. And then 6 is just a sine wave. I don't know why I had to think about that so hard. Sine wave being operated against by 5 or modulated against, whatever. Most of these things are triangle waves too. This one, the 4 is a sine wave. I experimented with other shapes. You could try getting different duty cycles of the square wave, but those produce some interesting timbres too that I was kind of interested in. So both of them are being sent out to their own filter after being modulated. You see, I used to have 6 going out as just a sub support, but I decided to add it as part of more dynamic part of the timbre. And originally it wasn't out all the way. It was like up here. Now it's like, so filter 1, they're basically just going through these filters to get to the wave shapers so that I can wave shape them independently of each other. And then later on, they get wave shaped again. So I have a couple levels of distortion happening here. The first one is, here's the wave shaper, and it is going in here. This is what it looks like. It's pretty, not a very exciting shape. I was doing more aggressive shapes, and it was just a bad idea. There was just too much going on. It was creating too much of a mess. So I left that alone and said, I'll worry about that later. And then this one is a pretty funky looking shape that I just twiddled with until I got something that I liked. So at this point, if you turn it off. So that is the result. Here's the result with this one. So that one just contributes to general, like it's basically like boosting the highs. It's almost like an EQ, but it's not the same. There's a whole bunch of interesting also side effects that come from using a wave shaper instead. So yes, that's that jazz. It would be interesting if I turn the wave shaper mix on and off as well to get that sort of, he's got the dun 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 dun, and so I could do that here at the same way, but I decided not to. So those are going out, and that's pretty much what's happening. So they both go through the filters. There's no dry end coming out. The dry end, let's I wonder what that would sound like. It sounds like this. So it sounds like that's the upper end, is the lower end. That'd be good for like a bridge or something. I dig it. So I really like these kinds of tracks too, because man, you just like getting down like, oh yeah, man, go find yourself a girl and just start going nuts. So, okay. Now let's talk about how I set up this chain up here, because I'm not about to try and do this. Well, first let's talk about post. So in post, he had some other elements, so I had to inspire myself and put in some elements so that I could create something similar to this. It really helps if you do that, because the mixing and mastering, I think I say this in every video, so there may be a day when I just stop saying it, but again, plays a big role. He had a chord thingy going on. I was like, oh yeah, I'll put some chords. I'm pretty sure he's playing a G. If you change the note range of these notes, that makes a pretty big difference too. So if I were to like go down lower or up, so these where the notes are is a big difference. And if you were to take these and get rid of them, and here's them by themselves up here. So that was another thing I had to decide to do, was to do that. So, and you'll notice that these are louder than the upper end. So this is sort of like an EQ move almost. I'm not looking for like octaves, parallel things. I've been doing so much music theory recently that like I'm seeing all these other relationships that were before, they were there, but now they're like painstakingly obvious. Okay, so this is a mixing EQ. That's all it was there for. General tone shaping, brought out some of the low end, brought out some of the low end too, took it out. I could probably be way more aggressive with this, to be honest. And there's also a dip right here for the kick, which I felt at the time it made a big difference. I'm not so sure how much of a difference it'll make now. It'll make a big difference. So the kick, now this is something that one of the pieces that I'm not happy with is this thing. So I'd have to go through and really screw with this and to get the mix to work, because as a sound designer, you are fortunately your own mixer and you can make pretty radical changes to your sound. If you don't like it, just completely ditch it. So, you know, just go at it. Here's the wave shaper. This is it. I actually brought the upper end down, and it's still pretty loud. Honestly, I'd probably have to turn everything down in a track like this and bring things up selectively and mix it all. This would be one of those mixes that takes a long time, and once you're there, whoo, buddy, it feels good when you get your kick to come through just the way you want it. Oh yeah. So Fruity Wave Shaper, that's the dealio with this thing. Yeah, I have a tutorial on it in case you're interested. I have a tutorial on, I think, all these things except the limiter thus far. Here's the Fruity Reverb 2, and I left it pretty standard reverb. I don't think I touched any of the controls except the wet. And even then, I think I brought the wet down. I knew that this kind of a sound, dry, sounds all right, but with the reverb, it adds that space. I could probably even be more aggressive with the reverb, maybe turn the delay up, but I'd probably want to then low pass it because that's just a disaster for the low end waiting to happen. Not low pass it, high pass it. Ooh, man. Oh, buddy. I've got my filters all screwed up. This thing, now the limiter, let me turn off all the posts. I guess I'll show you without any of the posts. So here's without the posts. So you see, like, not exciting. Like, dude, bro, we need excitement. So you gotta do I gotta do this. I did try messing with Maximus, a multiband compressor, and that was a bad idea. It was like, don't do that. So I didn't do it. I turned it off, got rid of it. Okay, so here's the limiter. And ooh, I paused it. Don't want to do that. It is pretty simple. I'm using using it for the sidechain abilities. I turn the threshold up. Do you see the blue line? The knee and the ratio are pretty aggressive. Let me see here. The ratio is 2. Well, I guess it's 2 to 7, but not that aggressive, but it is aggressive with the knee being the way it is. And so it's just turning that crap, boom. And one thing that I was messing with that I kind of liked was if you have a fast release time, you can see I let my attack through. So this is another thing that was important. So if you have a really fast release time, it'll actually add more distortion if it's too fast. So I was messing with that. It was kind of an interesting deal because normally it's a very horrible idea, but in this sound, it was a pretty okay idea. It was like, oh, this is kind of cool. The problem was my kick was disappearing, and so I would still have to make further mixing moves. So this thing's just a mixing disaster waiting to happen. But the attack, I brought that up actually because I was losing the bum, 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 bum. And so I said, you know what? Screw the freaking kick. I want to bring this. This is more important to me right now. So that's what I did. Heavily subject to change. But, you know, so anyways, this is a very important part. Without this, you see like the rhythm, like the dun, 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 disappearing is largely responsible to the side chaining from the kick. And yes, now the kick is also another thing altogether. I basically just slapped on some pretty basic stuff. Okay, so that is how I made that. Let's look at the operators. So that's the post. That's all the posts. So okay, operator 1. Well, I guess look at the main panel. I didn't touch anything on this panel. Zippity-doo-dah. So we're good there. Operator 1 is a ratio of 1. It is the bottleneck of the upper end. This is the higher timbre section, and so everything gets modulated, and it all modulates this last sine wave on its way out to make people dance. And this is what I did. This is a way to get a saw wave. It's a little different because this method of making it introduces some aliasing. I haven't even tested this, but this would be an interesting deal if I turned on some oversampling. Whoa, listen to that. That's way cleaner. What would be interesting is if we turn the oversampling on this too. Ooh, yeah. We could probably get a lot more aggressive. So that's something that I have yet to experiment with, but I could probably nail the timbre easier with this. Now, it will eat your CPU, so you could just turn the render setting up, and then when it renders, it'll do it like that. So you can get the timbre you want when you're sound designing, then turn it off for your mix down and stuff so that you have room for things. You may consider turning it on specifically when you're mixing this part. And that way, at the end, you'll have an extra clean mix and it will sound the way you expect it to. If you mix it like this and you expect it to sound like this and you have the render setting oversampling on, it's going to sound different when you render it out. You might be okay with it, but at the same time, if you were really happy with what you had, this could ruin your life. So make sure you're aware of this. So, okay, yeah, so that's that. There is nothing magical coming on over here. Operator 2 is, there's a little bit of magic happening. You see the volume is active. It's a sine wave. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you one other thing. Really quick, rewind. Okay, so the sine wave is feeding back into itself. This is a method of attaining a saw wave. If you watch my Learn FM synthesis tutorials, there's a whole series for it. This is one method, but this method introduces aliasing, which is a cool, gives it just a different kind of saw wave. Just it got distortion in it and in different ranges of it, depending on how far you drive it. The more you drive it, the more the upper end will sort of just become just random noise. So I chose to do it that method, and it is off here because if I do move it, it does become quite unenjoyable. It ruins my FMing. When I FM it, it becomes a big mess. So this is what I settled on instead of just doing that. This is a triangle wave. I keep saying saw wave. This is these are triangle waves. I wonder how many times I said that. Okay, so triangle waves. Woohoo. This is the attack guy. This guy is responsible for the dun dun dun, but it's not totally responsible for it all by itself. 3 has a similar shape. But 2 was originally like my gung-ho operator. The 3 was sort of just sitting in the background, and then later on I changed it to also be gung-ho. So gave it some whiskey. So volume, turn it off. If you move this, it makes quite a difference. So you could get so many shapes out of this. You could consider adding more points, doing all sorts of mumbo jumbo jazzy jum. All right, so here's operator 3. This is what's going on with it. It's at a ratio of 3, but these things I showed you earlier, you can just move these things all over the map. 4, one of these was at a ratio of 12, really. So yeah, so anyways, that's that. 4, that's 3. 4 is a sine wave. Its job in life is to bug 3. So 3 is being modulated by 4 in a serial relationship. It's at a ratio that is again subject to change. So those are some timbres you can get out of it from going through the various things, through the various ratios. If we come up here, very interesting sort of things that we can get as a result. If you move them slightly off, you get this like mid-reese thing. It's really interesting. Okay, so that's that, and it's a sine wave. Very fancy. No magic envelopes going on here. Okay, going down to 6. 5 is modulating 6. 5 is a ratio 1 dubila bop. Triangle wave. Oh man, I almost said sine wave again. Triangles, the Illuminati, I'm on to them. Okay, so here we have 6 is a sine wave being modulated against by 5, which is a ratio 1. This is a ratio 0.5. This is a very important ratio for when I picked my notes. 1 it's just too high. Watch. Here's 1. It sounds dumb. So okay, maybe you really like that. If you for this melody, that's dumb. You could write another really cool, like, you know, like one of those like sort of crazy sounding things, and you'd probably change up your FM, but you could create something cool with that. But for now, it's dumb. Okay, if you think it's cool, you drop your reasons why you think it's cool in the comments. But if you're on my side, comment against that guy. Okay, so 6. Anyways, here's 6. Oh yeah, that's the meat right there. You're dancing with like the fat girl on the dance floor that's what that is. That's too fat. That's like way that's like overweight right there. So don't want to dance with that. So okay, I don't mean to offend anyone. If that offends you, it's just a joke. Like, sorry if I offended you. Okay, so I don't have time to be all politically correct up in this grill, man. My philosophy instructor is always like, we're not PC here, and he brings up so much jazz. Like, it's a good thing he's not in court. He would be like, they would put him in jail. So here's filter 1, filter 2, and the wave shapers I've already shown you, and that's just about it. I will really quick talk about the other things in case you're interested real quick on some of the other sounds. The chords this is a harmor, very basic harmor. It's got 2 parts. It's got A, unison, the pitch variation's up, and it's been pitched up an octave with some harmonizer. It's got some compression and some reverb. It's pretty much how it looks. I didn't touch anything else because I was looking for just a quick da-na-na. He's got a cooler chord type deal that has, and the vibrato's on, where the vibrato comes on, which would be a cool thing, but I decided not to do that, so I didn't do it. And then B is just a regular thing, and It's just been cloned. I just needed a lower octave, and that's the effects get carried over. So this compression, I might consider taking off and doing myself because it's sort of squashing my chord sound in a way that I personally think I could get more chord out of my sound than what this is giving me. So I would mess with that. Okie dokie. So that's the kick. This is my offbeats. I went and looked. This is part of some crazy sample I had lying around. It was probably an impact or a machine sound or something. And I took out a piece of it. If you hit Control E, it opens it up. In Edison, you can select a piece of it, and then you could just drag that in, and it will become your new sample. But I didn't want to do that. Oh, man. Will let me undo that? Oh, I can't undo my load. That stinks. Well, there goes the song. But anyways, you could do that in case you didn't know. I've learned a couple other nifty tricks. I can't remember. There was one earlier that like blew my mind. I was like, what? Oh, I remember what it is. Check this out. If you click your menu and you hit R, it goes to rename. You see, I knew it was R, but I thought you had to hold down R and click. No, you got to get this menu first. And then if you hit like M, it'll be make unique, E, P. As long as you open up the menu, you can just hit the letter instead of going through and selecting it. And if you hover over like select source pattern, you can even type in the pattern. It will automatically select it for you. So cool. That was like whew, that was good for me. I was like, this is awesome. Because before I was shift clicking, because that's how you do it in other areas of FL. Like for example, if you were to come over here, shift click, bang, we could put like our dope fire bass, bro, chip, top, brotato, whatever. I heard a song the other day called, not the other day, Brodo Baggins. And then I heard another song called Bill Bro Baggins. I was going to like punch a hole in my car. I was so excited about this. So anyways, that's the chords. That's these things are being sent to even though I haven't labeled them. I could shift click and put hats or whatever because they function mostly as hats. This thing gives it that so as these things turn off quickly, as you can see, I turned the envelope on. This thing sort of hangs out a little bit longer and creates that feel, but gives it a strong attack. And then this is the EQ I settled on. The boost. Not the best philosophy in the world, but it's what I did. So get whatever, man. Eat it. So here's Maximus. The big thing is I just expanded the low and the high, or the mid and the low. The mid made a big difference. Watch, without this on. That's like a freaking wimp kick. There it is. If I were to solo this, oh, let me go to my pattern. Do. Without this. So yeah, that made a big difference. There's this kick though is one that I might consider. I need to go through and look. I'd look for another kick because this thing has there are some interesting problems. I came up with this kick. There's like this sort of crunchy, wobbly sound thing that I didn't notice in the original sample until I started compressing it. Then I was like, oh, that's a problem, and I couldn't EQ it out. But now that I play it again, it's not poking out too bad right now. So. Whatever. That sounded dirty. If you have any questions about this, let me know. I'll play it one more time. Oh yeah, man. I like this part. I like this part and I like this part. Those are fun parts. Room for more expansion, you know? If you have any questions about this, let me know. If you have a sound and you've made it to the end of this video that you would like done, I guess that's not part of the requirement, but I have a form on my website for it. But I do these sparingly because I have other series that I think are more important to pursue because they are the foundations for how to do this stuff on your own anyways. Yes, subscribe and have a blessed day. It's a wobble bass made with FM8 and a fair amount of post. But we'll talk about that later. Here it is. So that's it. And now if I add in all the extra jazz.